Street Journal op-ed, meanwhile, titled Hunter Biden's Fair Tax Share with this. IRS agents reveal details of the son's scheming that mock the president's tax moralizing. And the New York Post writing heroic IRS whistleblower testimony and snarls Hunter and Joe Biden in bribery scheme. Doug Collins, former Republican congressman from Georgia and former Judiciary Committee ranking member, joins us now. Thank you very much for joining us. So as we enter this brand new week here, we see Hunter right there alongside his father at the state dinner, as we all wait to know more, especially about that text message where he's texting about his father sitting right next to him. When will the White House weigh in?
Well, they don't want to weigh in. I mean, this is their problem. I mean, if the more this is revealed, the more that they're getting caught up in this, they're having to now go back and deal with the fact that they've denied this forever. They've tried to take Hunter as an island that only conservatives are really wanting to go after, and that Joe Biden never had anything to do with it. And the problem is, every time that the president has opened his mouth about this, it's seemingly contradicted when there was text messages saying he's involved. And here's the interesting part: whether his father was sitting right next to him or not, was the fact that Hunter Biden was using his father's name to get this money. He was using his connection to the former vice president, or the vice president at the time, and using that to do these business. It just goes to show that what we've been saying all along is proven out to be true. And I don't think the White House wants to deal with it, because they're going to have to, at some point, you can't ignore this up to a point. And you can't use the Department of Justice as your backstop and your personal defense attorney for Hunter Biden for so long, because people are catching on to the fact this is not good.
People want to know if there are bribery schemes for sure. They want to know if there's any influence peddling. They want to know if there's special treatment. This IRS whistleblower, Gary Shapley, has insisted that the U.S. Attorney, David Weiss, wasn't allowed to pursue certain charges against Hunter Biden and made unsuccessful attempts to elevate himself to special counsel in this Hunter probe. Attorney General Merrick Garland denied that. And in a letter dated June 7, 2023, Weiss proclaimed his ultimate authority over the probe, including, quote, responsibility for deciding where, when, and whether to file charges. When asked about the contradiction, a spokesperson for Weiss declined to comment. How much longer can they continue like this?
Well, right now, as long as they're getting cover from other media sources and media sources across the country, besides, times that we're discussing it like we are now and others, is that they're just getting coverage that people are not knowing what's going on. But it's building and building. I mean, you're seeing the Wall Street Journal. You're starting to see the Washington Post actually talk about this. At some point in time, and I'm in favor of this, they've got to go outside of the Department of Justice, someone who's never been at the DOJ, never been at FBI, to actually appoint a special counsel here, or somebody that can look at this without having the interference or the baggage or the feeling that they need to protect the Department of Justice. Because if not, I mean, people will continue this. It's going to be a problem for those of us who've seen this for the last several years, know that all this is true. This is just saying, wow, I mean, finally somebody else is hearing this. But until they actually bring this back out and we can get the Department of Justice to actually go forward without sweetheart deals, without blinders on, then the people will continue to make their choices, and Joe Biden and his administration, whether they like it or not, are going to have to deal with it.
And it seems there's an opportunity for the White House to deny that report and deny that text message and what the son is saying in that text message. But again, we'll see. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence, meanwhile, Congressman, finally has released its COVID origins report. This happened on Friday night, several days past the deadline Congress had set. The report was required to declassify all information related to COVID's possible links to Wuhan. House Intel Committee Chair Mike Turner says the report did not go as far as needed.
We've asked to open the curtain and release the intelligence, and they went behind the curtain, read the stuff, and came out and said, well, this is what we think about it. This is not sufficient. This is going to be set up between a battle between Congress and Director of National Intelligence to make certain that the law that was passed unanimously, both the Senate and the House, and signed by the president, is complied with, but also the American public get the answers they deserve.
Will we get answers, Congressman?
I think they'll keep sidestepping this. But I have a problem here, and I think the American people do. It's the definition of all. I mean, declassify all. This is not a maybe, shall, wonder, let's do parts, let's go behind closed doors and decide what we want you to hear. It says you will declassify all. And again, this is setting up something that's been building for years. Congress's oversight being stonewalled by the administration's unwillingness, especially in the intel community, DOJ and others, to comply with what the law actually says. This is setting up a very dangerous precedent. And, I'm hopeful they'll apply. The more than likely, though, is just information is going to have to come out from whistleblowers. It's going to have to come out from Congress until the pressure is put on by mainstream media and others to say, look, you comply with the law, or there will be consequences. But remember, from Congress's perspective, who has to enforce that? All part the Department of Justice. And that's the part we're seeing is falling through.
All right. Congressman Doug Collins, appreciate you joining us today, sir. Thank you. The White House still refusing to comment on President Biden's possible connections to his son Hunter's business dealings. This after an IRS whistleblower revealed a threatening 2017 message from Hunter demanding payment from a Chinese business associate and saying his father was sitting right next to him. And Hunter was right next to his father last week at the state dinner for the Indian Prime Minister Modi. Republicans say the special treatment doesn't end there. House Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan blasting the Justice Department's handling of the Hunter tax investigation.
We have a whistleblower come forward and says they were denied information that they should have had. Hunter Biden got special treatment, preferential treatment, and they ran this case in a ridiculous way. So that to me is the big takeaway. Nothing has changed at the Justice Department.
Mark Meredith has more. He's live at the White House. Is today the day, perhaps, that we hear from the White House? I know we're expecting a press briefing a bit later this afternoon.
Sandra, I wouldn't bet my wallet on it. Good morning to you. The White House has made it abundantly clear it is not interested in talking about first son Hunter Biden or his past business dealings. But as you referenced, the questions just keep on coming, not only from the press, but from congressional Republicans as well. Cameras were watching last night as the first son joined his father coming off the steps of Marine One into the White House. They were coming back from Camp David. The White House refusing to answer many reporters' questions about where things stand with the first son in regards to those congressional inquiries. President Biden has repeatedly said he never discussed business with his son, but recently revealed messages from an IRS whistleblower show Hunter made it clear in at least one conversation with the Chinese executive his dad was not far away. The one message reading, "I am sitting here with my father, and we would like to understand why the commitment made has not been fulfilled." Today, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy said it raises only more questions.
The thing people don't realize is every single day we're bringing people in. This is why you're getting this information.
Maybe not together.
This is why you have the bank statements now. This is why you know about the 1023. This is why you know about WhatsApp. We're continuing to do our information much different than anybody else.
Last week, reporters left the White House briefing room extremely frustrated that most questions about Hunter Biden were not addressed. And the last time we heard the president talk about this, while he was out in California last week.
I'm very proud of my son.
I'm very proud of my son. We'll be looking to see if the president adds anything to that. He's got an event about infrastructure, I think any minute now to get started. And Sandra, no indication that this Hunter Biden scandal is impacting the president's reelection plans. He's set to go to both Chicago and New York this week alone. Sandra.
All right, Mark Meredith live at the White House. Keep us posted.
The White House now dealing with yet another major optics issue, thanks to first son Hunter Biden. It started on Tuesday after he agreed to plead guilty on 3 federal charges. Many considered it to be a sweetheart plea deal from the Department of Justice. And just 2 days later, Hunter was spotted at the White House's state dinner with Indian Prime Minister Modi. But earlier that day, an IRS whistleblower made some bombshell claims against the president and his son, suggesting that President Biden may indeed have known about his son's overseas dealings and alleging political corruption in the Hunter Biden tax probe. But instead of laying low and maybe keeping some distance during this period, Hunter Biden made yet another high-profile appearance, traveling to Camp David with his famous dad over the weekend. And now it appears the White House is attempting to dismiss these concerns.
If Hunter Biden wasn't the president's son, would he have invited someone who had just reached a plea agreement with federal prosecutors?
Well, a couple of things. Again, that's his son. He's a family member. It is not uncommon for family members to attend events at the White House.
I mean, not a reasonable question to ask whether the President of the United States was involved, as this message seems to suggest, in some sort of a coercive conversation for business dealings by his son. Is that something, if he wasn't, then maybe you should tell us.
Yes or no, was the president involved in the shakedown attempt?
I just answered the question by telling you my colleagues at the White House Counsel has dealt with this, and I would refer you to them.
Lisa, I love the imagery of Hunter Biden there at Camp David while his dad is on Zoom calls with global leaders around, discussing the incursion in Russia, just like when he was rooting around in the garage driving the Corvette with the classified papers behind it. It's like this guy is everywhere, and I'm not quite sure why.
Well, I also because he can. Look what happened to Hunter Biden. It was a slap on the wrist. The allegations that Merrick Garland and the Department of Justice interfered to protect Hunter Biden. Our government's been captured, right? Like, we are so far away from the vision of America of decentralization. The biggest problem, the most dangerous thing in America right now is the centralization of government, the power that bureaucrats, the deep state has. And it goes back for a long time. Ron Paul was talking about in 1998 that it was almost as the FBI was designed to spy on American citizens, talking about how Woodrow Wilson spied on citizens, had them arrested who disagreed with his foreign policy. You can go back to the FBI spying on the Barry Goldwater campaign at the direction of President Johnson. They told Martin Luther King Jr. to kill himself, tried to extort him, right? So our government's very, very corrupt. And so I think even though the, Joe Biden and the Hunter Biden stuff really bothers me and scares me, I think our country and our government and the fact it's so corrupt scares me even more.
And there's an element of flaunting, Sean, that we see here, because it seems to me that, again, instead of laying low and against appreciating and at least appreciating the severity, the enormity of what is surrounding him right now, even though I guess misdemeanors aren't that enormous, he's really taking advantage of his father and his father's positions, which aren't those the allegations?
Oh, I disagree. I think Joe's taking advantage of Hunter. So listen, this makes complete sense to me. So when you have a crackhead, coke addicted son who in the text messages has a lot of animosity towards the father, towards his dad, you keep your friends close, you keep your enemies closer. So Joe Biden does not want to not invite Hunter to all of these events, doesn't want him not at Camp David. When Hunter could go rogue, you want to keep him very, very close. And yes, you're going to get the press to blow up and ask you questions, give you pushback, but that's better than having a son out there who could sell you down the river and ruin your prospects for 2024. So this makes complete sense to me.
Yeah, like a falling on the grenade, Jerry.
Absolutely. Well, what stands out to me, because I study taxes a lot, right? And I'm very concerned with what Americans have to pay and that there's not a double standard. And here we have a big fat double standard, right? President Biden says, everybody should pay their taxes, especially the very wealthy. And guess what? His son is not paying his taxes. 2014, 2015, the Burisma income, he doesn't report it as income. He reports it as a loan. Let me tell you, this is the oldest tax dodge in history. It happens all the time. And he did not report what he paid in interest or even his loan payments. 2017, 2018, he fails to pay $200,000 in taxes he owes. This happens over and over again. And it seems to me like the president should stand up and say, son, it's time to pony up.
I don't know if I foresee that, though. It seems that recidivist Hunter keeps just getting away with it with his father's blessing.
Yeah, I think that the fact that you had Hunter at Camp David, the fact that you had Hunter at the dinner with Modi, the big state dinner, shows that the White House has made a calculation that the American people do not care about this issue and that Joe Biden's impervious to any sort of political accountability, but not so fast, Joe. You look at the Harvard-Harris poll. 59% believe the laptop is real, Hunter's laptop. 55% think the FBI and DOJ are not looking into it. And 63% say Hunter engaged in influence peddling. And 53% say his dad did too. So look, maybe the American people decide we don't care about all this, even though we believe they influence peddled. But that's a risky, risky bet. And they just keep flaunting, to your point, Hunter, front and center. Look at my son, Hunter.
Yeah. And I argue the percentages would be even higher if the mainstream media weren't absolutely suppressing this or crafting the narrative as the president's struggling son, which the Washington Post liked to do.
And moving on to this Fox News alert on the probes into the Biden family business dealings and whether the Justice Department gave Hunter Biden a sweetheart deal. Those concerns leading the White House press corps to press the administration for answers. You'll remember that from the last White House briefing. Moments ago, the president himself did respond to a question from our own Jackie Heinrich on his son Hunter. Listen here. Let's bring in Jonathan Turley, George Washington University Law School professor and a Fox News contributor. Unfortunately, that was a little bit of a rough cut there. But she asked him, are you lying about speaking to your son about his business dealings? And he very firmly said, no, Jonathan. But as you have been pointing out, somebody's not telling the truth.
Well, not only that, but that clearly does not appear to be true. I mean, let's be honest about this. We have photos of the president with business associates of his son. We have emails on his laptop referring to meetings and dinners. There's an audio tape of the president leaving a message for Hunter talking about a story about his business dealings. I mean, at some point, you have to basically call this one and say, it's clearly not true. But that's going to be the least of his concerns going forward, because the different accounts that we've heard about what happened in this investigation cannot be reconciled. Somebody's lying. And there's real criminal and impeachable conduct that can be raised. And that means that Congress's power is at its apex. It can move forward, and it needs to move forward. And it has a full array of powers to do that with.
And you write that in your piece, who is lying, Merrick Garland or the whistleblowers? The only thing abundantly clear, you say, is that someone is lying. Either these whistleblowers are lying to Congress or these Justice Department officials, including Garland, are lying. The response from both Hunter Biden's counsel and the Attorney General himself only deepened the concerns. So how's this going to go forward here?
Well, Congress needs to start bringing people in. There's nothing that concentrates the mind as much as a congressional subpoena. Hunter Biden should be called in. We need to stop the nonsense. You know, his team is still suggesting that maybe the laptop isn't ours. Maybe this is not his message. All right, call him in, and let's get an answer on the record what this is about. Notably, that the Chinese businessman that was the subject of that WhatsApp message did not appear to send back a message saying someone hacked you or I just got a bizarre message. Instead, the House is suggesting that he sent millions of dollars after Hunter Biden made that threat that his father was joining him in demanding this money. Well, the House has now documented dozens of accounts and corporations used to transfer money to the Biden family. It is a very serious corruption scandal, whether the media wants to cover it or not.
To that point, here is Anna Navarro on The View calling the whole thing a father's love. Listen.
The Hunter Biden story, the scandal, the this, the that, it's also the story of a father's love. And Joe Biden has never and will never give up on his son Hunter, and will never treat him lesser than. And so he is a father first. Take it or leave it.
An example of how some of the media are covering this. I won't ask you to respond directly to that, Jonathan, but I will put back up the WhatsApp message, okay? For anybody who has not really specifically seen this, provided from the Gary Shapley Jr. testimony. I'm sitting here with my father, and we would like to understand why the commitment made has not been fulfilled. This is a Hunter text that he sent over WhatsApp. Tell the director that I would like to resolve this now before it gets out of hand, and now means tonight. And Z, if I get a call or text from anyone involved in this other than you or the chairman, I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me and every person he knows and my ability to forever hold a grudge, that you will regret not following my direction. Ending with this, I'm sitting here waiting for the call with my father. I mean, when you see that, shouldn't there be bipartisan calls to know more and to dig deeper on this?
There should be, but every Democrat voted against releasing this information. The Democrats have opposed any investigation of this corruption scandal. It is very clear that the Biden family ran an influence peddling operation, in my view. The Biden family has been known for years for influence peddling. It's not just Hunter. His uncle has been repeatedly accused of influence peddling. Do you think that if this message is real, this was the only time he made that type of threat? The point of influence peddling, the subject of influence peddling here is the president. He was the person that they were peddling. And whether he was actually sitting next to his son or not, he was the object of these efforts. So the Congress has to investigate, and whether the Democrats support it or not. But what's very serious is that some of the accounts of the whistleblowers really contradict what Attorney General Garland has said in the past. You know, the whistleblowers are saying that Weiss, the U.S. attorney in Delaware, said that he tried to bring charges in two jurisdictions and was rebuffed. He also allegedly told them that he wanted to get special counsel status but was denied. None of that is consistent with what the Attorney General has told the public and has told Congress.
I'll get a final thought from you, Jonathan, on the U.S. Attorney David Weiss on this Hunter probe. This is the letter back to Jim Jordan saying, I want to make clear, as the Attorney General has stated, I've been granted ultimate authority over this matter, including responsibility for deciding where, when, and whether to file charges. Real quick final response to that, Jonathan.
Well, that's the reason these whistleblowers have said, under the penalty of prosecution, that that's not true, that there were 2 attempts to bring charges that were denied. So let's find the truth. Let's bring everyone in.
All right, Jonathan, and your piece is out there for everybody to see who's lying, Merrick Garland or the whistleblowers. Appreciate you joining us on that. We'll keep watching it. Thanks, Jonathan.
It is deeply concerning and disheartening to witness instances where individuals, especially those closely associated with prominent figures, exploit their connections for personal gain. The case of a president's son using his father's name for a bribery scheme is a stark example of corruption and the abuse of power. It is a fundamental principle of justice and fairness that no one should be above the law, regardless of their family name or position. The actions of the president's son not only reflect poorly on his own character, but also raise questions about the ethical standards and integrity of the entire family. This type of behavior undermines public trust in our political institutions and reinforces the perception that those in power are more interested in personal enrichment than serving the interests of the American people. Moreover, such actions have far-reaching consequences for our democracy. When individuals exploit their family connections for personal gain, it creates an environment of favoritism where the powerful and influential can manipulate the system to their advantage. This erodes the belief that hard work and merit are the keys to success, fostering a sense of disillusionment and frustration among hardworking citizens who strive for a fair and equal society. As conservatives, we value individual liberty, limited government intervention, and the rule of law. We expect our leaders and their families to uphold these values and act as role models for the nation. The abuse of power and the use of a family name for personal gain not only betray conservative principles but also undermine the very foundations of our democratic society. It is crucial that such incidents are thoroughly investigated, and if found guilty, those responsible should face appropriate legal consequences. Upholding the rule of law and holding individuals accountable, regardless of their familial connections, is vital to preserving the integrity and trust in our political system. In conclusion, the use of a president's name for a bribery scheme by his own son is a deeply troubling situation. It highlights the need for a strong commitment to ethical standards and the rule of law, ensuring that no one is above accountability. As conservatives, we must remain vigilant and demand integrity from our leaders and their families to uphold the principles on which our great nation was founded. Thanks for watching. Until next time.